welcome to session 2 of Unit 2. And in this session, we'll be looking at the nature of physics teaching and learning. My name is Patrick AJ. Now, by the end of this session, you should be able to define the terms teaching and learning and list the characteristics of teaching and learning. Then explain the teaching-learning process. And finally, describe the various techniques you would adopt to motivate your students to learn as a teacher. Now, what is teaching? When we say teaching, what comes to mind? And so teaching, it is an activity that is carried out by an agent called the teacher, which is designed to bring about desirable changes in the behavior of students. So a teacher trying to bring about desirable changes in the behavior of a learner is termed as teaching. And here, the desirable or the positive changes in the behavior of the student is the evidence that teaching has occurred. So that if initially a student could not define, let's say, heat, and after going through a heat instruction, the student is able to now define heat, then we will say that teaching has taken place. So if a student develops a positive attitude towards physics as a subject, as a result of their interaction with you, the teacher, then teaching has also occurred. And so teaching can also be said to be an interaction between a teaching agent, who is the teacher, and a learner, which changes certain behavior of the learner. And the behavior of the learner can be the cognitive, it can be the psychomotor, or the affective domains of the individual student. What are the characteristics of teaching? And so one characteristic of teaching is that teaching is causing to learn. So we must understand that teaching is not the transfer of information from one person to another. It is not about the teacher transferring knowledge or information to the learners, but it is the teacher who, through various means, through various activities, is able to cause the learner to learn. The next characteristic of teaching is that it is encouraging people to learn. So, in the process of teaching, the teacher adopts strategies that are motivating, that will ensure that it will sustain the student's interest in order to go through the set of instructions to cause the intended behavior change. And teaching is also a guidance. So, in teaching, the teacher is supposed to guide the learners to learn. So in teaching, the teacher serves as a facilitator who will be a guide to the learner in the teaching learning process. And finally, teaching is stimulating. So that is ensuring that student becomes enthusiastic about the various activities that occur in the classroom, so that these activities can bring about a change that is a desirable change in the behavior of the learner. What then is learning? And learning implies a progressive change in behavior. So it is a process that results in modification of the behavior, the way of thinking or feeling of the learner. And learning is said to occur if there is a relatively permanent change in behavior of the learner as a result of experience. So two key things are mentioned here. One is that there must be a relatively permanent change in the behavior of the learner, and this change should be brought about due to the learner's experience. And this change, we said, must be permanent, and the experience can be a direct or an indirect experience. So a direct form of experiences, here we can allow learners to interact with the basic components of an electrical circuit. But when it comes to the indirect, you can just let them observe an electrical circuit. And the outcome of this is to bring about a permanent change in the behavior of the learner. Now, what are the characteristics of learning? And so, one of the characteristics of learning is that learning is about organizing experience. And here we must understand that learning is not just the addition of knowledge or addition to knowledge, or it is not just about the acquisition of facts or skills, which is done maybe through repetition, but it talks about the reorganization of experiences that will ensure or bring about a change in the behavior of the learner. Another characteristic of learning is that it is active. So in learning, students play active roles who construct their own knowledge. They are not passive participants who only are there to receive knowledge from the teacher. And learning is both individual and social. So in learning, it is an individual activity, and it is as well a social activity because the learner is affected by his teachers, their friends, their classmates, the parents, the community members. All these individuals affect the way and manner in which a student learns. And the next characteristic is that learning is the product of the environment. And so understand that a conducive environment promotes learning. So when we are in a classroom environment where all the necessary materials required for teaching and learning are provided, it will enhance learning. When we are in the home environment where students are getting the right kind of interaction, they are seeing the various kind of applications of their concepts, it also enhances learning. And another characteristic is that learning affects the conduct of the learner. So after the learner having gone through a set of instructions, there must be a change in the mental structure or the behavior of the learner after that particular experience. Now, what is motivation? And in motivation, it is considered as the urge or the arousal of interest to act in order to produce one or more effects. In other words, we can say that motivation energizes or accelerates the change in behavior of the learner. So motivation is an energizer to the changes that we want to see in the behavior of the learner. What are the techniques for the development of motivation in class? And one technique is ensuring that there is attractive physical and environmental conditions. So when our classrooms are very attractive, learners always want to come to such classrooms, and at the end of the day, it is able to motivate them to learn. The second one is stimulus variation by the teacher. So the teacher is someone who has a sense of humor. He is able to use activities that are interesting, and he varies these activities in ways that also interest the learner. And all these activities at the end of the day motivate the learner to learn. And another technique is reinforcement. Try as much as you can. Provide feedback. When a student gives the right answer, let the colleagues clap for the person. Sometimes you can offer awards. All these are ways of motivating your learners in the classroom. And also attainable goals. So when you set some objectives and students are able to achieve these objectives, it also serves as a way of motivating them to learn in the classroom. And when students also have knowledge of their progress, when they have knowledge about how well they are faring in the subject, it also motivates them to learn the subject. And their active involvement. So when you are teaching physics and your students are just passively involved, you realize they find the subject to be boring, they find it not to be interesting, and hence they are not even motivated to learn. So as a teacher, you must always ensure active involvement of your learners in order to motivate them to learn the various concepts that are being taught in the classroom. And you must also link what they are being taught in the classroom to the environment. link, just ensure that linkage, the real world phenomena, the real world views, the applications of the various concepts that are being taught in class. Try as much as possible when you are teaching movement, you can just let students know the tap they have in their homes. All this obeys the principle of movement. And once you're able to do this, you realize that your learners find the concept very interesting and they are motivated to learn. And you must also use teaching learning resources. These are materials that also have the potential to motivate your learners to learn the concepts in the physics classroom. And your teaching skills as a teacher. So you must adopt and adapt varying or various teaching skills that will ensure that your learners always feel motivated in the classroom. Teaching skills that always encourages learners, that always enhances the teaching learning process. And finally, the teacher's own motivation and your interest. So you, the teacher, your own motivation and interest also motivates your learners to learn in the physics classroom. Now let's look at the teaching learning process. And the teaching learning process is the process by which the teacher guides students to change their behavior or acquire knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and habits in the classroom. And it is a two-way communication where the teacher interacts with the student and then receives feedback from the student. So the interaction is between the teacher and the student. And in the classroom, the teacher, you are a resource to the student. And so your roles include how you use yourself, how you're going to use your knowledge, your experiences as inputs in guiding your students to learn. Now, students, in this session, we have discussed the meaning of the terms teaching, learning, and the teaching learning process. And we also learned about the characteristics of teaching and learning, as well as how to motivate students to learn. As we bring the session to an end, let's take this question. In what three ways can the teacher motivate students to learn? And what is meant by the teaching learning process?